All right. Hello, everyone. If you're on, give me a quick comment if you can, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, and let me know you're there. Welcome to Sunday Funday. It's time for our games and Bible study time. And I think it's going to be kind of fun tonight. At least I hope it will. I have no idea how this will go over. I don't even know how long this is going to take. It's, the problem I have when I try something new is I can estimate it, but it may go by quickly or it may take longer than I think. So we'll play it by ear, and but we will play it and hopefully have some fun here this evening, digging into the Word of God. You'll notice our picture there. Our theme for the night is that we are digging for treasure. So while people are joining, I will let you know that if you want to participate, you'll need your Bible handy. I know I spoil you a lot of times because I put the scripture right up there on the screen, and I will be doing that tonight. But you won't be seeing the scripture until after we've gotten past the game part. So if you want to be part of the game, hi Miss Judy, then you will want to have your Bible on hand, and we're going to be digging into it, looking for treasure. And so I just want to give you time to go pull that if you need to. Obviously, if you use a electronic Bible or something like that, that's fine too. But so if you're getting ready for our game, make sure you have your Bible handy if you want to participate. If you're one of those who likes to sit back and just kind of answer to yourself and listen to the answers, and that's fine as well. But these are not going to be questions that I think anyone's going to know off the top of their head. You're going to have to look some of these up. I'll be shocked if anyone can guess these. There might be one or two that people could just make a guess and come up with something, but it'll be hard. So, all right, just a moment longer, and then we will get going. All right. Sunday Funday, digging for treasure. Anybody have one of those metal detectors like we're showing on the screen there? See those a lot at the beach. That's where that picture was taken at. I know some people around here actually do the metal detectors in some of the areas that in within Bibb County even, and finding some real neat treasures from historical time periods and stuff. So pretty neat things. Hi Carol. All right, I see you now. So Carol, just to let y'all know, if you're going to play the game, you might want to have a Bible handy. I don't know if you heard that part yet. Letting people know before we get into the game that you might want to have a Bible handy, whether it's electronic or whether it's physical, one or the other. But you will need it to be able to search for answers tonight. And so, all right, so we're going to go ahead and get started and just kind of see how this goes. I want to do a different game, something just kind of shake things up from the regular trivia. And so we're going to do a little treasure hunt here, digging into our Bibles. And I'm kind of focusing this on animals. So that's another theme for the night, is animals as well. But without delaying things anymore, our first set of questions here, or things we're looking for, is on the screen. So we want to find the fourth animal listed in Deuteronomy 14:5. And you can look for any of these. You can jump to the last one and do it if you want to. No, you're right back. All right. Or you can, whichever one you want to go to. We're not going to sign them out, but I figure it'll be interesting to see what people do, whether they just kind of start from the beginning and work their way down, or people kind of sit back and say, I'll let everybody else look those up because that's a hard book to find, or how you approach it. That's part of what I want to see here as well. But as you find the answer, excuse me, put it in the chat. And once we have all the answers there, or enough of them there that we want to move on, we'll look at what the answers are. So, and I'll give you the verses then. But for now, if you want to be one of those finding the treasures, start looking. So I mentioned the fourth animal listed in Deuteronomy 14:5. The last animal mentioned in 1 Kings 10:22. The wild animal mentioned in Isaiah 51:20. The second animal mentioned in 1 Samuel 17:36, and the first animal mentioned in Psalm 80:13. So, looking to see if anybody's getting any of these looking up for us. If you're like me, you would be at a disadvantage if you're watching this on your phone, because I use my electronic Bible for almost everything, and if I were having to watch this on the phone, I'd have a hard time switching back and forth to do it, so I have to go pull out my hard copy Bible. All right. Anybody finding these animals? Should have been wearing like a little safari hat here, shouldn't I? That's what I needed. All right. Okay, wild goat. So we already have one of them. And just for fun, I'm not even going to tell where these land. I might if it gets to where we don't have too many people doing any of them. But for now, I'll just let people go out. I'll just say yes, we have an answer. Won't tell you which one it is. So if you're looking at looking one up, you can keep guessing where it might be or might not be. Boar. Hey, Miss Sandra. Didn't know you were here. Hi. Yes, boar is another one. So we've got 2 out of the 5 so far. Wild goat and boar. And it's funny, I'm already starting to see kind of how the approach people are taking to looking these up. Alright. Maybe I should start telling people which one so we don't have people looking up one that's already been found. I'll wait for another one, then we'll let them know where they are. Some of these are a bit challenging to find as well. That's part of the fun of this, is just to kind of get us into our Bibles and looking around. Baboons, all right. I didn't think Christy was here. Peacocks, all right. We've got 4 out of 5 already. So I'm going to tell people which ones have been found. The first answer has been found. The second answer, let me double check here before I say that. Second answer has been found. The third answer has not been found. Fourth answer has been found, if I'm remembering correctly. And a bear. Okay, so I think we got them all now. All right. Wait a minute. Do we? Wasn't getting the answer I was thinking of here. Yeah, okay, so that's that one. Let me go back. I should have been doing this. So we got wild goat is well, let me just go on through them. I think we got them all already. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we got them all answered, I believe. Well, there's one that's in here that I'm not seeing on there. So I don't see the Isaiah one being mentioned yet. So we're gonna wait just a moment longer. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that's that one. Christy did the First Kings one. 1 Samuel. Oh yes, okay, that's the 1 Samuel one, and then Psalms was that one. All right, we're going to walk through these. I'm afraid I may have made my list here out of order, so I may be confusing everybody. Wait, we've got them all, and then we don't. So let's just go ahead and walk through these. I've got more for you to find here in a moment, and as I said, I was trying to test something out here, and so our first one that came up, the 4th animal listed in Deuteronomy 14:5, was goat or wild goat. And you'll notice there in verse 5, it lists the hart, the roebuck, the fallow deer, and the wild goat. And also a purgag. Anybody here hunting for purgag or pygag? I'm not sure how you pronounce that, which was kind of a type of antelope. All right, everybody's catching up on those. Everybody was looking up the last one there. But in this passage of scripture, this is where God's given them the dietary laws that the Jews were to follow. And I'll include a couple more verses other than just verse 5, so everybody kind of have the background there. These were things they could not eat. Were listed above verse 3. And then verse 4 says, "These are the beasts which ye shall eat," and list out the ox, the sheep, the goat, the hart, the roebuck, the fallow, the wild goat, the pigarg, and the wild ox, and the chamois. I guess is how I would say that. I'm sure that's not how it was pronounced then, but the pigarg is kind of an antelope type deer as well. So, and the chamois, however you want to pronounce that word. That was some people aren't. There's always some debate over what exact animals they were referring to in some of these, just because the distance and time and from when that was written to other time periods and animals kind of coming and going. But they believe this was kind of a long-haired sheep that was kind of a sheep-goat looking type of an animal there. So anyway, let's move on. The second one, the last animal mentioned in 1 Kings 11:22 was peacocks. He had that mentioned there as well. And this was kind of interesting, the context of it. 1 Kings 10:22 is describing Solomon's wealth and his power and how big his empire was there as the king of Israel. And it says in verse 22, "For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with a navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks." I thought that was kind of interesting. Can you imagine Solomon's palace area with the apes and peacocks in it? I never really thought about that. I'd seen that before, but never really sank in. But apparently he had a very exotic type of setup there. So yeah, in addition to all the other stuff they brought, they had Navy out traveling the world, bringing back the greatest treasures they could find. And I can understand why they might want a peacock. That's a pretty impressive animal there. All right, the next one was the wild animal mentioned in 51:20. Everybody was getting that there at the end. I think everybody looked it up last. All right, Christine Major says apes and baboons. Interesting, it would say apes and baboons. I would see where apes and baboons might be used interchangeably, but not for the peacocks there. So Isaiah 51:20 says, "Thy sons have fainted, they lie at the head of all the streets, as a wild bull in a net. They are full of the fury of the Lord, the rebuke of thy God." And so here Isaiah is obviously talking to the nation of Israel about the punishment that's being delivered to them, and he's showing their young men as being kind of like a wild bull that's been caught. They're just kind of running here, running there, trying their best to do whatever they can, but they really can't do anything. And he says that they're full of the fury of the Lord. They're facing the judgment of God, and they don't know what to do with that. So obviously, being in a place of judgment is not a good place to be. All right, the next one, 1 Samuel 17, verse 36, was bear. And this is a passage, if you recall, where David is talking to King Saul, and he's giving him his resume for why he should be able to go out and fight Goliath. And in verse 36 he says, "Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God." David said, "Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with thee." So that's the word bear. All right, Christy, yours says caught antelopes in a net. All right, so yeah, there is some differences in the translations when they start trying to call out some of these animals. In some cases, the words are similar to other words, or they're not distinct in terms of what animal we would have. So he's just talking there about kind of a wild animal that's caught in a net. So the bull or the antelope, as I'm guessing you're probably using NIV, is translating it there. So that's the difference in antelope and bull. All right, so that's the bear, is the story of David getting ready to fight Goliath. And I love David's confidence there. He's like, "Hey, I fought a bear, fought a lion, this 10-foot giant. We got this. God helped me before, he'll help me again." I love that confidence. That's the type of confidence we ought to have as well. All right, and then the first animal mentioned in Psalm 80, verse 13, this was the last one in that first section. The boar out of the wood doth waste it, and the wild beast of the field doth devour it. And in this particular psalm, the writer is crying out to God about the way that Israel has been overtaken, and the way that their nation basically has been laid to waste. And he's talking about how that the animals coming out of the woods are wasting it, just kind of doing whatever they want to, and the wild beasts of the field just kind of come in and treat it as if it's any other part of the woods there, just kind of showing how desolate their place had been, their home had become, because God had carried them away. Most believe that Psalm 80 was probably written focused on the northern kingdom, referring to when Assyria would have taken away the northern kingdom of Israel, and obviously left a lot of the place there just empty as they began carrying people back as slaves to Assyria there. So, all right, anybody up for another round of this? Anybody got their Bibles out still and ready for another 5 to look up? See if anybody's ready. All right. There may be a long delay. It may take me a moment to get your responses. Alright, I'm going to move on. I'm going to assume you do, and if people don't, then let me know. Be like, Chuck, this is boring, move on. You can let me know that as well. But here's our next set of things to be looking for. I want the first animal named in the list of livestock in Genesis 47:17. I want the last animal named in Leviticus 11:29. I want the animal that seems like a modern day dog mentioned in Proverbs 30:31. And the animal in Job 30:29 that is scary. And the type of wings mentioned in Daniel 7 verse 4. This is another one that'll be kind of interesting for you, Christy. It'll be interesting to see how many of these line up as well. All right, so now I'm getting a thumbs up. All right, so so let's see how many of these we can find. I'm going to pull up my help sheet here so I know when we're getting them. And it's funny because I don't actually have the answers on my help sheet. I just have the verses there, so I have to kind of skim through it when you give me the answers to try to remember, especially with the moving between first and last and all of that. Like I say, you can pick whichever one and start there. I noticed last time when people started putting answers in, Carol I think jumped to the first one. Miss Sandra jumped to the last one for the start off with. So I like that everybody kind of just jump in different places. All right, Carol's already got horses. Ooh, Miss Sandra going for dragons. All right. I'll go ahead and just tell people that's the first one and the fourth one. So it probably makes it easier if you know which ones have already been looked up. So, and Christy, if you're looking at Job 30, you'd be interested to know what the NIV says for that one. I will talk a little bit about the word that's used there and some of the ideas behind it. But dragons is definitely how it's translated in the King James. All right. Tortoise. All right. Tortoise is correct. Tortoise is the second one. So we have the Genesis, Leviticus, and Job looked up so far. Bet you didn't expect to find tortoise in there, did you? We'll look at that verse in a moment. It's another interesting one there as well. Greyhound. Okay, I didn't see that one pop up. So yeah, so we have the third one there, Proverbs 30:31. A greyhound. And Christy, I'm pretty sure that's another one that yours probably doesn't say greyhound. Probably says something else there too. I'm going to guess, Christy, yours might say something like zebra for the Proverbs. I really don't know, but I'm just guessing. All right, so we have one left, I believe. And this is probably the only one that I guess people might have been able to make a guess at and been able to get it right. All the others, I'm not sure anybody would have been guessing greyhound and tortoise and horses if you were just trying to pull in, especially dragons, if we were just trying to pull in animals of the Bible here. All right. Everybody looking for Daniel here? Or is everybody waiting to let somebody else look it up? All right, Eagles. All right, Miss Angela looked it up there. So yeah. So let's go ahead and go through each one of these individually like we did the others. If you're still looking one up, that's fine. Okay, jackals. All right, I should have. Yep, that makes sense. That's what Job has for that one. We'll talk about that in just a moment. All right, so first animal named in the list of livestock in Genesis 47:17. I actually thought this might trip some people up, but it didn't. It says, and they brought their cattle into Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and for flocks and for the cattle of the herds and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. This is the passage in Genesis where Joseph has gone to Egypt. He was sold into slavery, and he's then gone to Egypt, and he's already interpreted the dream for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh has set him up as one of the high commanders there in Egypt, and his task was to store up food to be able to feed people during the famine that Pharaoh's dream had warned them about. Obviously, Joseph being able to interpret that because God gave him that ability for that purpose of elevating Joseph to this position. And so this is part of that section there where people are, the famine has hit, and the Egyptians are coming to Joseph and saying, we need food, and he's giving them food in exchange for horses and cattle and all the different things listed there. So yeah, horses was the first one listed. I thought people might say cattle though, because if you just read first animal and you see cattle there, you might say, oh, cow. But good job on that one. Horses was the answer there. But another great story there reminding us of God's providence, how God set up all the details of Joseph's life, go from being almost killed by his brothers to being sold into slavery to being put in prison, to being there in prison ready for someone to remember, hey, this is a guy in prison that can interpret dreams, to standing before Pharaoh and giving him the dream, and then Pharaoh saying, well, why don't you run this program to spare us from this, since you've been given this insight from God. All right. Tortoise, the last animal named in Leviticus 11:22. We're back to more dietary laws of the Israelites. And I thought it'd be kind of fun sometime to do a dietary laws game. Like you have to guess, I'll give you an animal and you tell me if it was clean or unclean, because I can never quite keep up with these. You read through those sections in Leviticus, and I'll be honest, reading Leviticus is challenging, is it not? Because there's so many laws and so many different things that are popping at you from here and there, and you get through that section is kind of challenging to read. But then 11:29 it says, these also shall be unclean to you among the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind. So if you were observing the Jewish dietary laws, you need to mark weasel, mouse, and tortoise off your shopping list. And I laugh about that, but it was important that they knew what was allowed and what was not allowed, because this was the way that they were showing to God that they were focused on Him and obeying Him. So obviously it wasn't funny from that standpoint. God gave them that for a purpose and for a reason. And when we saw this morning in our passage where Paul quotes from the minor prophets there, and he says, the just shall live by faith. That was really what they were doing here. They were living by faith when they were saying, okay, God, I'm going to be obedient to you in everything you've given us to do. All these dietary laws, all these rituals we're to perform, all the laws about what we can wear. Those weren't things to make them righteous before God. They were things to make them show that, yes, God, I'm putting my faith in you. So, yeah, mark those off your list. No weasel, mouse, and tortoise if you're following the old Jewish dietary laws. All right, the next one. This one's one that's going to be kind of fun because it's a odd terminology here. And it's the animal that seems like a modern-day dog mentioned in Proverbs 31. It refers to a greyhound. It says a greyhound an he-goat also, and a king against whom there is no uprising. And in this passage, the writer of Proverbs here is given some wisdom. He's talking about things that are good, things that are in a good position, things that are strong, if you will. And first one he lists is something that's translated as a greyhound. And excuse me. And that word greyhound, what did you get for that one, Christy? I don't think you've told me the Proverbs one yet, as far as what the NIV says. But the word greyhound is one that means one that girds up the loins. So it's referring to something that is ready to move, something that's ready to go. Some kind of viewed that as a zebra because it had the stripes going around it. Others kind of viewed that as just something that's ready to, a fast animal, maybe an antelope or a jackal or something like that as well. That's just one of those terms that it's not necessarily referring to the dog we know as greyhound there, but definitely to something that was fast. And I find it interesting that a greyhound is definitely one of those animals that just ready to run, right? So yeah, definitely not talking about the bus line. So the greyhound mentioned there in Proverbs 30 verse 31. All right, I need to keep moving here. I'm taking too long on some of these. The animal in Job 30:29 that is scary is a dragon. Job 30:29 says, "I am a brother to dragons and a companion to owls." And so you'll notice Christy mentioned that hers says jackals. What Job is saying here in Job 30 is he's describing his mourning, his crying, and he's saying that with all that's been done to him, he's crying out to God, and all this crying is making him sound like an animal that is noisy and loud. And so he uses this term that many translate as dragons as kind of it's a word that is close to a word also used for alligator, so it's kind of implying maybe some type of sea dragon, sea serpent type of monster. Definitely just trying to give this idea of something that's loud and fierce when it comes out to try to scare whatever is in front of it. So that's why in some of the translations of those, Christie says jackals, just because of the way that they make a lot of noise and they're noisy. And oh, Christy finally gave me the Proverbs. A strutting rooster. That's interesting. Okay, I didn't expect that one to be the answer, how they translated that one. But all right, so yeah, so the dragons is definitely, and notice this as a companion to owls. So just kind of that noisiness, and he's saying that's what my sorrow has done to me. He's turned me into just this noisy thing as I'm just crying out to God, and so that's a mention of dragons there. So I don't really know for sure what animal is referring to, or maybe even if he's just referring to something that was kind of a mythological creature that they had at that time of stories of sea dragons or of flying dragons or some kind of thing, but it's something that makes a lot of noise and instills a lot of fear because of the noise that it makes. So very interesting animal there to be mentioned. All right, the type of wings in Daniel 7. These are eagle, and you'll notice in Daniel 7, God's given him a vision here, a couple of visions, where he's describing these different creatures. And verse 4 it says, "The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. It was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it." And so he's talking there about the different kingdoms that were going to come. Many people believe that Daniel 7, the vision God's given him, matches up with the vision that God had given to, I'm drawing a blank on which one of the rulers it was, but where he basically just told them, there's going to be the Assyrians, and you kind of can line them up, and afterwards looking at how the Assyrians were going to be followed by the Babylonians, and all the way down to the fourth one there being an animal in terms of Daniel's visions here, an animal which no one had ever seen before, which was the Roman Empire. And so here he uses eagle's wings to describe this creature here. All right, well, hopefully you had some fun with that. I want us to look at a couple of passages here talking about animals. I was thinking about all these different animals that are mentioned in the Bible. Let's look at the Genesis chapter 1 about the creation of animals. It says, "And God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that has life, and fowl that may fly above the earth and the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the fowl multiply on the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping things, and the beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and every fowl of the air, and everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. I want to ask you to put one more thing into the chat. If you have a pet, tell me what pet it is and what their name is, just for a second. Just tell me what pet you have. You can name one or two or whatever. I know we can get out of hand if we let people list all their pets, because Christy seems to think every animal in the world is her pet. But give us a couple of them if you want to. And while you're doing that, I want you to think about the fact that this is telling us God created all these different animals, all the animals that we know of and that we hear of. Maybe we don't ever even see some of them. There's so many animals. Most of the different species we never see personally, just because the earth is so big and there are so many of them. But it tells us that God created that. And then he came to mankind. He said, let's make man after our image, and we'll have them be over all these different animals. So that's saying God created animals for us to take care of, for us to use. And you also notice in that passage there that both humans and animals at that point were herbivores. They weren't for food at that point. I should have clarified that before I asked the question. You ask some people like, yeah, God gave his animals for food. They sure are tasty. That was after the flood that God actually said, okay, now you can begin eating these certain animals. But here at this point, it was, God gave all of us the plants. But he made, and to me, when you think about it for a second, the fact that God made some of these animals, or whatever it is that you put in there that you enjoy, it's, let me go ahead and switch back to this scene because my head on top of that guy's distracting me. Actually, I think I'll just go, yeah, that's fine. But it really is bothering me, sorry. All right. But think about the fact that God made those creatures. And the creativity that goes into making that, the creativity that says this is something they're going to enjoy, whether it's a horse. Oh, hey, Carol. The current task is to give us a name of one of your animals, what kind of animal it is and what name it is, or even a couple of animals. But as we think about, God made these things and even made them for our enjoyment and use. And one, it talks about how creative God is, to be able to create all these different creatures and even the fierceness that some of them exist with. If you see an eagle out flying, it's not necessarily a dangerous animal, but just the strength and power and the strength of those claws and everything, it can put fear in you. Even if you're not worried about the eagle attacking you or whatever, it has something about it that's that way. And then you come to things like horses. Christy mentioned Buck and Watley. Just the way you can train them and ride them and build friendships with them. And, it's amazing that God created all that for us. That was a gift from him. And if you think about it, to me, that's the whole picture of who God is. A lot of times people look at the world around them and they see the fact that there's heartache. They see the fact that there's violence and death. And they say, well, what kind of God is this? But you see, when we look at what God created, he made everything perfect, everything that was good. The animals were there for our use. The animals were there for us to rule over them and to take care of them. And what changed all that was sin. So it's not that God introduced something that said, let me just kind of mess this up a little bit and see how they play with this. That's not what the Bible shows us about who God is. It shows us that He made things He thought we would enjoy, things that would amaze us, things that would entertain us, things that would give us lots of joy and happiness. And, as a result of sin, those things changed. After the fall, we were no longer able to interact with every single animal. Today you can't just walk up to every animal and go, "Hey there, let me pet you for a moment." We're given, we have challenges now between us and animals. That's the result of the fall, a result of that impact of sin in our life, in our world. And that's, to me, the whole picture of the gospel, is that God made everything perfect. Your life was intended to be one that is joy and peaceful. That's how it was in the Garden of Eden. Let me see some of these answers here. Bella, mouse, baby, pirate, tiger. All right, so we got a bunch of cats there. Snoop cat, pirate. But, we were made to have that perfect relationship, and then sin destroyed that. That's the problem every person in this earth faces. At some point in life, we go through heartache, we go through disappointment, we go through pain. That pain is because of the fall. It's because of the result of sin. Not necessarily our sin, but the fact of sin in the world. The fact that sin exists is the reason we have diseases and all these different things. That's the impact of sin. So how do we go from perfect to broken? That the Bible gives us that picture. That's Christ. It's what He did by dying on the cross to give us that. That's why I think when Jesus was reading from Isaiah, talking about He was here to heal the brokenhearted, to bind up the wounded. He was here to do all of that, to provide healing. Yes, it wasn't going to happen right at that moment, because obviously we still have diseases today, but He was making that way for us to move back from the broken back into a perfect relationship with God, which we can do right now. We can have that relationship with Him that's not broken. And then as we fall back in sin, He gives us that way to repent and come back to Him. And then what He's working on that transition is eventually that's going to be the only relationship we know. And we will be back to that original state of perfection that God had created everything. And that's why you see even in the descriptions of the millennium reign, how they'll talk about the lion laying down with the lamb, everything will be back to the way God had planned it. So I didn't want to take too long with that, but I did want to give you something to think about this week, how that God created all these animals that we interact with, all the animals we don't interact with. It mentioned the whales in that passage in Genesis, the big things that can blow our minds. He created the small creatures. As we really get to know them and see how intricate they are and how perfectly made they are, it'll just blow your mind. He made all of that because He wanted us to have something to enjoy. He wanted us to have something here, and He did that all for us. So remember that this week when you play with your cat, or when you ride your horse, and you feed your dog. If you have peacocks and baboons running around the house, will you play with those like Solomon did? Remember, God gave us that because He loves us. Because He's a good God. He created things that were good. So yes, sin destroys it. Yes, sin makes it imperfect. But God's given us a way to get back to Him. And one day He's going to restore all of that. That's our hope for this week. That's our good news. That's the good news we need to be sharing with everyone we know. So hope you all have a great week. If I can do anything, let me know. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat here. And hope we have a great rest of your week. And hope to see you soon. Bye.